this is me. I grew up in a small farming community in southern Ontario where my days were filled with riding my bike, building forts, and of course, proving girls can do whatever boys can do, and maybe even better. I remember my dad often asking me a question that went something like this. Carrie, why did you build a giant dirt jump right in the driveway? Or why did you climb all over those huge clay piles way out the back? And my answer to him was always, because I can. And I was on every sports team I could sign up for from the time I could swing a bat. And by the time I was 16, I had set several still standing high school athletic records. I found my life partner at a young age and off we went on a grand adventure. After finishing my post-secondary education, I landed in a field I found challenging enough to keep me interested and fast-paced enough to hold my attention. I became the mother of 2 energetic boys who, for the record, I can still outrun, outskate, and most importantly, outshoot. And my husband and I have hiked and traveled, discovering places seen only by those who are willing to risk life, limb, and body odor to get there. That was me until it wasn't. Just after my 32nd birthday, I found myself unable to care for my family or myself. The transition took only about 10 weeks. Simple tasks like preparing food and getting dressed were no longer possible without the help from others. Even my ability to chew properly was unpredictable. Working became nearly impossible, and any physical activity became not only extremely difficult, but painful as well. Every aspect of my life was being affected by my swollen, painful joints. I'm sure you've heard this story numerous times. And I was feeling lost and scared to the point where I wasn't even sure who I was anymore. We had recently moved all the way across the province, which left me without a family doctor. Relying exclusively on walk-in clinics made it very difficult for me to have any regularity or direction in my care. And I don't mention this because I wasn't well cared for in that context. It just wasn't the consistency that I needed. Through a walk-in clinic, I'd been given a referral to internal medicine, but was told that the wait time would be 9 months. I was devastated. After calling their office and literally begging to see someone, they still told me I'd have to wait in line. After struggling to keep up with the demands of work, I'm sure you can imagine that was tricky, my boss connected me to a family doctor who was familiar with the local arthritis program. From that point on, things started to change for me. It's quite an experience to receive a chronic illness diagnosis. In some ways, it's quite a relief to give this pain and illness a name. It feels like direction. Direction's good, even if the treatment plan is overwhelming and frightening. I remember the day quite well, quite clearly. After being assessed by one of his team members, and in a matter of speaking, triaged as critical, it was determined that I should see Dr. I'm not supposed to say his name. My rheumatologist. The usual formalities of health questionnaires and reviewing blood work and x-rays complete, I remember him standing in front of me, holding my hands and looking me straight in the eye. Rheumatoid arthritis. Hold on a minute, old guy. That's a disease for old people. Don't you see I'm only 32? I remember thinking, what is this? This can't be right. You better get your facts straight. But there was a plan, there was direction. My mind was spinning. All I heard was chronic illness, injections, aggressive treatment plan. And it was absolutely overwhelming. I went from finally a diagnosis to, no, please, not me, not this. It was happening so quickly, I was completely overwhelmed. Now, enter the rest of my group. Literally, from day one, I was introduced to a group of people who would become my go-to crew, my team. I remember sitting in a room surrounded by a cluster of healthcare professionals, all discussing my care plan and even including me in the conversation. Still feeling a bit skeptical about the treatment plan, I remember thinking, well, if they're all here for me, maybe I can do it too. I specifically remember the pharmacist making a recommendation that wasn't quite in line with what the doctor had suggested, and a change was made. Okay, now I'm in. Now I'm convinced. They all brought their professional best and respected each other's input to develop a plan, my plan. From here on in, it was up to me to follow through, relying on their help when needed and hoping for what all of us wanted, my wellness, my life back. I'm pleased to tell you that after approximately 4 months of therapy, I was feeling much more like myself. I was reintroducing daily activity and was once able to care for my family and myself. I was still getting used to the medication regime and learning how to cope with some of the side effects, but was also experimenting with the timing of the medications and how to develop an important skill, which was my head-to-toe joint examination. It was at this time that the team asked if I'd be interested in participating in a relatively new research group called Catch. Feeling grateful for the excellent care I had received and for the forward thinking of people behind the scenes in labs and research centers who had contributed to the development of better management of my disease, a give back to that, sure, I had no hesitation when asked to join. A few more months passed and I was approached by my arthritis team to consider being a patient ambassador. I would tell my story of living with RA to others who were newly diagnosed. I'd share bits of hope that arise through the struggles that come with living with RA. I was truly honored. I'd been given an opportunity to turn what could have been complete devastation in my life into an opportunity to speak about restoration and to promote courage and bravery to those who were feeling quite defeated. Over the course of several years working to decrease my medication to just a whiff, as I like to call it, I was able to function without any flares or inflamed joints. I'd become quite an expert on knowing my body, understanding my limitations, but not always listening, and recognizing when to take my as-needed drugs, but also knowing the importance of having more ice packs than the Toronto Maple Leafs and Raptors combined. I was able to continue on with my life. I worked, I played, I went on many grand adventures and shared simple, sweet moments with my family and friends, uninterrupted by illness and disease. In December 2017, 8 years after my initial diagnosis and after a discussion with my physician and healthcare team, I decided to give drug-free remission a try. It was actually a much more difficult decision than I expected it to be. Although the prospect of taking a break from my medications was appealing, because even with just a whiff, I still had a little bit of headaches and the odd, nausea a little bit. The thought of returning to the state of illness that I had come from was really quite frightening. But I went for it, hoping for the best. About 10 weeks in, I could tell things were starting to change. It was recommended to me that I try routine NSAIDs to see if they would sort of do the trick, so to speak, before jumping right back into taking my DMARD. And although things changed slowly, they continued to change. I started into a flare, and as expected, my team was there for me. Without hesitation or a lengthy list of have-tos before being seen by them, I was assessed, and it was decided that I should start back at my full dose of my DMARD and I required two steroid injections, one in my wrist and one intramuscular. That was last spring. Since then, I've taken my NSAIDs a bit more regularly and have already tapered my dose, with the hope, of course, of continuing to taper it to just a whiff again as I'm able. I cannot begin to express to you my gratefulness to my team for their prompt attention to my symptoms and my concerns. Their continued care and concern to keep me living my life to the full was beyond my expectation. I was cared for quickly and efficiently, and over the course of 2 months, I was feeling much more like myself again. This is me. I live in a small city north of Toronto where my days are filled with doing things I love. I'm a nurse at the local hospital, able to care for those who are unable to do so for themselves. And on any day can be found skiing, snowshoeing, running, biking, and of course, proving even old girls like me can keep up with the boys. I play ball hockey, pond hockey, volleyball, or am elbows deep in one of my many gardens. My husband and I have completed the Tough Mudder several times over and backpack up and over mountains year after year. My boys are now young men with hopes and dreams to make the world a better place and to go on grand adventures of their own. And yes, my dad still asks me, Carrie, aren't you going to slow down soon? Why do you still do these crazy things like climb up and over mountains and take the risks that you do? And my answer, because I can. So where to next? It truly, truly is only because of people like you who are committed to being excellent and striving for new heights in your field that I've been able to experience the wellness that I have. And I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional. Here I go. I'm no fool. Ahead, there may be difficult days for me as I continue to live with the ups and downs of my disease. But I'm not afraid. I have confidence that there will be new ideas and new discoveries along the way that will only bring forth a stronger and more robust treatment plan for me and the thousands of others who live with arthritis every day. You might ask me if I will continue to support research programs like yours and to be involved in delivering hopeful message to those who struggle, and my answer will always be yes. And why? Because I can. Thank you.